Family, welcome back to day 12 of the Golden Ant Castle. It seems that the 30-day check-in plan is impossible to complete. Today, several ants have died again, and there are only about 10 ants left in the entire ant castle. This colony of Formica fusca ants is just too difficult to keep alive. Watching their lives fade away, I feel a deep sense of helplessness and regret. At first, I thought I could raise them successfully, like others who have raised thriving colonies. But now, facing these fragile little lives, I've lost confidence in the upcoming breeding plan. How many more days can these ants survive? The answer is still unknown. Today, the Golden Ant Castle is eerily quiet. It feels as though the ants themselves know their time is running out. Every ant's movements have slowed down, and the entire nest seems to have come to a halt. At this point, the only place the ants can survive is inside the nest. Inside, there have been no deaths yet, but the ants are all in a dormant state. The silence is so profound, it gives off a sense of impending doom. Today, I carefully observed everything inside the nest. In the past, I would often see ants busy with tasks collecting food, building tunnels, and occasionally, I'd spot some ants venturing out to explore and search for resources. But today, everything was different. The ants weren't moving, and the nest was eerily still. What struck me the most was that the food I had previously given them hadn't been stored in their food chambers. In the past, the ants would neatly gather the food and organize it, but today, the entire nest is empty. There's no food, and no ants have ventured out on their usual tasks. It was then that I realized this was not simply a case of the ants being tired or lazy. Something much more serious is going on. Their behavior has changed dramatically. The once busy colony is now in complete stillness. The worker ants that had previously ventured out for exploration are mostly gone. I began to wonder if this could mean that the ants who ventured outside were not sent out on a task but were abandoned by the colony due to some unknown illness. As I continued to observe, I began to realize that the ants who had ventured outside were not simply lost or lazy. They were sick. I had initially thought that their deaths were the result of infighting or environmental stress, but today's observations made me reconsider. Those ants that ventured outside never returned to the nest. They wandered aimlessly, not even returning to search for food or look for their fellow ants. They simply struggled, unable to understand what was happening to them, and eventually succumbed to death. It became clear to me that the ants weren't dying from external threats but from illness, and in order to prevent spreading the disease to their fellow ants, they chose to leave the nest and die alone. When I realized this, my heart swelled with a deep respect for the ants. They chose to die outside, away from the nest, in order to protect the rest of the colony from infection. They were not driven by hunger or the struggle for survival, but by a deep sense of responsibility toward the colony. It made me realize the level of sacrifice these little creatures are capable of. I could do nothing but remove their bodies as soon as possible to prevent the disease from spreading to other healthy ants. However, from the current situation, it seems that this colony is not in a good state, and things are looking bleak. At this point, it's become clear to me that completing the 30-day check-in goal is no longer possible. The ants are dying quickly, and the colony's future seems uncertain. The once thriving nest is now reduced to only a few remaining ants. I've lost the hope I once had for this breeding plan. How many more days can these remaining ants survive? I can only wait and watch as their fate unfolds. However, despite everything, I still refuse to completely lose hope. I believe that although this colony of ants may be on the brink of collapse, there is still a chance. Perhaps in the future, new ants will come to take their place, and the colony will grow again, stronger than before. Even if this particular colony dies out, I hold on to the belief that life will find a way to return to the Golden Ant Castle, bringing with it a new generation of ants, full of hope and potential. My goal of completing the 30-day challenge may be unachievable, but I still feel there is value in continuing to wait. Perhaps one day, we will see the Golden Ant Castle thrive once more, with the population exploding and life taking root once again. The situation with the ants has led me to reflect deeply on the fragility and resilience of life. Their collective behavior and the sacrifice they make for the survival of the group has taught me so much. In their world, individual lives are connected to the fate of the colony, and perhaps we too can learn from this sense of responsibility. Whether it's taking care of others or facing adversity, we can all draw strength from their example of perseverance and selflessness. Though the current situation is far from optimistic, I still believe the story of the Golden Ant Castle isn't over. No matter what happens next, I will continue to observe, document, and share this journey. I believe that even in these small lives, there is still hope and potential for new beginnings.